we actually worked at Camelback Ventures together. We all know the impetus and etiology of Guardian Summit is actually Kelly Salkins. So to see Guardian Summit grow to what it's been, what it is now, and where it's been, it started with her and her thinking that we could bring high net worth individuals from around the country to think about them as guardians, right? We had this conversation around generational wealth a long time ago. So she's moderating this panel, joined by Bianca Cook of the New Orleans Collective, Lo Williams Thomas of Zenistry Labs, and STEM Unlimited Global Impact, and 2026 Camelback Fellow Kwame Terra of Bear Health. So, and our host is Julie Zan. I think we're missing somebody. No. No? Did I said it wrong? Okay, here we go. There we go.
Hi everyone. I think I am, we are the only thing between time and drinks. So hopefully I can get you guys get going and everything, and we can do a great cap at the bar afterwards. I'm really excited about this panel. One of my favorite topics, probably my favorite topic to talk about, is always all things New Orleans. So I'm really excited to have all three of you join. If you want to just start by giving a brief introduction of yourself, but just like 1 or 2 lines, if you had to boil down what is it that you do, what your organization does, I think that'll be great to orient the audience.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Is the big switch on?
Can you hear me? Yep, it's on.
Okay, let's try that here when you back.
Okay. Hey everyone, my name is Bianca Cook. I am the founder of the NOLA Collective, which is a digital media and cultural strategy platform based here in New Orleans. I help people every day discover what to do in New Orleans, but also I help and work with brands, businesses, creators, and founders with strategy, everything from business strategy to social strategy. So, welcome.
Hello everyone, my name is Lo Williams Thomas. I am the CEO and founder of Zenistry Laboratories, as well as 501c3 nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit STEM Unlimited, I'm sorry. We are the first cosmetic manufacturer in the state of Louisiana. We do everything from brand itemization to custom formulations to multi-industry testing, contract manufacturing, as well as 3PL services for the beauty industry. We have been around since 2022, and my background is in the beauty industry as a cosmetic chemist. So thank you for being here.
Hey everybody, my name is Kwame Terra. I'm the CEO and founder of Bear Health. We're a startup company based here in New Orleans, committed to maximizing health in the Black community. Our goal is really to make health part of Black culture, placing it at the center of how we live, learn, work, play, and celebrate in the Black community. We have a health app that gives people health scores, kind of like a credit score for your health, and it changes in real time depending on how you change. So if you go on a run or a walk one day, score goes up. Get 2 or 3 hours of sleep one night, score goes down. Based on those changes, we make recommendations for how you can improve, as well as connect you to healthcare providers, resources, and experiences at Bear Connect. Bear Connect is actually a wellness first third space for the Bear Health community that we just opened up here in New Orleans on Bayou Road. You can really do anything there. People ask me what we do. I say we do life there, but health is at the foundation. If you want to come to the space, you want to attend a meetup, host your own meetup, all you have to do is be a member, have the app, and know your health score, and we just do life there. So looking forward to talking.
Nice. So I love to start my interviews by always paying homage when it comes to New Orleans. So I'm just curious, are there any entrepreneurs, innovators, founders that you could think about or that you want to kind of highlight just to get us started that you felt inspired you, whether you knew you were being inspired at a young age or not, but when you look back, you can like point to them and say, they taught me how to do this, or they were doing this before and that's why I'm doing this now, as it relates to, particularly in New Orleans, but you can use a wider scope, of course, but as it relates to New Orleans, are there any people that you can think about that you think should be lifted?
I could go first with that one. I would say, so it's still in healthcare, but my background is healthcare nursing. I did not think I would be in entrepreneurship, honestly. But when I was coming out of nursing school and kind of knew I wanted to get into the business side of healthcare, I actually reached out to a nursing entrepreneur here in New Orleans, PK Shirley. She's a philanthropist. She's also, I think, probably had one of the biggest nursing talent pools in the Gulf South, actually. So reached out to her on LinkedIn, actually just cold messaged her, and so she became a mentor of mine, and I actually did an internship with her pretty much the summer, I think it was the summer before I started my MBA. So just really want to learn from an entrepreneur, not knowing that I would one day become one. I just wanted to learn from a nurse at the time that was more in the business side of healthcare. So it ironically, it helped long term because now I'm here and have my own business.
I love it. Yeah. Awesome. I'll say she's not a New Orleans native per se, but she has Louisiana roots. And of course, we all know Madam C.J. Walker because when we were in school, we had career day. They said, who would you want to be when you grow up? And that was who we were stapled. So that was something I always looked at, especially with her creating her own products and becoming the first, millionaire that there was at that time as well. And even now with the roots that she has here and how we're able to really staple what she had planted then into innovation to what we're doing now. Even her granddaughter, she comes here a lot and does a lot of different things with New Orleans and with our culture as well. So I'll say that Madam C.J. Walker was the one that I dressed up as Halloween.
Yeah, so for me, I feel like I'm constantly inspired by people that I follow on social media, entrepreneurs. I'm just constantly looking for different ways to expand my mind. But as far as like locally in New Orleans, actually probably my grandfather and my uncle. So my grandfather's name is Nasheed Salakadeen. He actually just wrote a book called The Sacred Journey. He sold 350 copies in the past 3 months. And it's basically just his life story. His son, my uncle, and my mom's brother, he kind of mentored me when I was 22, kind of just getting into sales and stuff like that. And his son is actually a Reezy. I don't know if you guys know the hip hop artist Reezy. So I just got this whole nucleus of folks here in the city that push me. Reezy and I actually have a competition going where we're trying to see who's gonna be the first one to become a millionaire. And so I think he could beat me right now if he just took the check, but no, I think he wants to stay independent. And I support that. Yeah, entrepreneurship is really about continuing to expand your mind. The world's moving really fast right now, and it's important to always be trying to put yourself out of business by being the innovator, because if you don't do it, someone else will. So.
Yeah, and I'll just lift up one more. Usually I say my grandmother, but I also like to use Miss Camilla as an example. Miss Camilla, her and her husband drove a van service. And they pretty much covered like the downtown, Gentilly and a few other wards. They ran a van service for morning and after, and pick up and drop off. They also ran a before school and after school service, which I went to, but Miss Camilla was also the candy lady. So she was the ultimate operator. And when I look back, I think we sometimes, and we'll get into narrative, we sometimes look at these people as, oh, she was just the candy lady or she drove the van. But these women, particularly the Black women that I think about, were really the foundation, the entrepreneurial foundations to so much in the city. Like they provided access, so we couldn't get to school or get fed by the neighborhood or so forth and so on. So she's just someone I always like to lift as well in times like this. Given though I think all of us probably have grown up seeing innovation or ownership, entrepreneurship in one way or another, but a lot of times today when we think about entrepreneurship in terms of geographics, it's usually of course California, Silicon Valley, New York, Austin, and maybe even Atlanta. But from your vantage point, why have you chosen to build here? Like, what is it about New Orleans that you feel is worth being invested here?
So I'll say I chose New Orleans, of course, because I'm a native of New Orleans. I've worked in other states, operated in other states, saw how things were ran, what those things could do for New Orleans as well by coming back home. But what I saw was a white canvas, like a blank space. Especially after Katrina, there was a lot that I think we could build up even going through college and, you know, trying to figure out exactly where I wanted to be placed, and how the destination had to match a little bit close to New Orleans, because of course I'll be home state. But I think that there's a space where people see New Orleans as tourism, right? That's the number one thing that you hear when you hear what New Orleans does, but they don't see the innovation side. There's a lot of scientists, engineers, healthcare, innovation here that we have proof of concept on, where it's just not an idea anymore. These things are running, these things are operating. And so when I think of New Orleans, we have multiple universities. Of course, our youth is very important, and we have to do a lot to keep them here so they can see the bigger picture of, hey, we have resources for you. We have industry here. We have industries that we can build here. So choosing to stay here, that's a part of like my real big purpose, because yes, you can go somewhere else and exist in their ecosystem, but here we have the opportunity to be very close in ecosystems, depending on, it doesn't depend on even what industry you're in, as you can see. But I did choose New Orleans for that reason, because we have a lot of work to do that could bring us to a certain level, but I think it can be done based on what I see we have here.
I was gonna say that I feel like New Orleans has consistently been choosing me over the past 10 years of my life. So I was born in New Orleans, but I grew up in Houston, Texas. And then I ran track and cross country at Xavier University of Louisiana. And spent a few years after college, Houston, California, so on and so forth. And then the Xavier cross country and track coach reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested in going to school, because he paid for it if I could coach now. And so just constantly kept getting pulled back to the city. We built our company over the past 3 years at Xavier in the entrepreneurship department, and now we're just kind of here, you know, and all of our momentum and all of our impact is already here. We do plan to expand for sure, but we're going to figure out how to get it right here first before we do that.
I would say I feel like I have a similar story with Kwame. I feel like New Orleans did choose me. Really, like I said, healthcare background, and really just at the time of, I started my business in 2023, saw the gap of just like, saw the gap in her narrative that I didn't like, as we talk about narratives. I always hated the narrative, being somebody from Louisiana, from La Place, Louisiana, which I just like to say down the street. But I hated the narrative that you couldn't stay here and be successful or stay here and thrive. And I saw that in my healthcare field. I was like, okay, well, I'm thriving. And then as I heard more narratives about like, oh, we're only here for like tourists, like New Orleans only, like the tourist industry is like what to focus on. And ironically, just like hated to say, I'm like, okay, I know that there's more happening in the city. Like I'm a person that's very resourceful, and like I just saw the gap and had the urge to be like, okay, I need to do something about this. So I feel like the NOLA Collective couldn't really work anywhere else, and not that there aren't businesses or pages that talk about what things to do, but the culture here is so rich. We, like you said, have a blank canvas. I feel like with the systems, we still have more work on the systems to really, fix some things, to really highlight some things, and I feel like with my business, I'm able to do that and really tell the stories of a lot of people that are doing that. So I feel like it couldn't work anywhere else just because of the richness of where we are, and I do feel like New Orleans is, called me here and is keeping me here.
I love that. Do you feel like there's a specific advantage you could pinpoint in terms of like living here? I feel like I have a one-up on everybody else, every other founder from like another city. I know that's an aggressive way to say it, but is there something here that's like, I wouldn't get this anywhere else, that's why I know I have like this one unique advantage?
I would say two things, culture and proximity. So one thing we always like to say, like we're rich in culture, which we are. There is no other place like New Orleans. We know this. Like there's no other place. So many people try to export our culture. With Kelly, you talked about a lot with homecoming and the narrative exercise we did. But our culture is so unique that you can only come here to really experience it. So that is always an advantage for anybody that is building here. And then two, proximity. Everybody loves to joke that we're really 1 to 2 degrees away from everyone, but I see that as an advantage because the people that I'm able to tell the stories of or help promote a lot of their passions that with a event or a niche social group that they're starting, I can really it's one call away or one person away, and I feel like that's a big advantage of being here in New Orleans.
I'll say as well, I'll piggyback off of you with proximity, because when you go to larger cities in general, their ecosystem is huge. And you typically, when you're going into entrepreneurship or you're running a business, you don't know what you need to ask for until someone tells you you need it. So here, we have a lot of different organizations, and the proximity being close, you can speak your story or say what it is you think you need, and someone in the room can say, hey, you need to know this person, and connect you right then and there. So I think that's something that you would not get in a bigger city, typically because it's a lot of people that do a lot of things great, but they may not be specific for what it is you need. So that was something that I personally experienced and know, yes, my connection base, or Rolodex as we used to call it, is huge within the city because of proximity, but it also leads you to different avenues elsewhere also. It's not just a local thing where we say, oh, this is just local, we all know each other because it's small. No, we know each other and we know what we all need because we come into spaces like this and we say, hey, this is what I'm having challenges with, this is what I need, and we're able to say, okay, I had this same issue as well, this is who you need to talk to. So I'll say proximity.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you say after piggyback, but I'm gonna triple down on the proximity thing. It's like, you could become a household name in a matter of months in this city, in a major city in the US. That's a pretty significant advantage, not only for like how quickly you can reach your target market here, but also what that does to your brand nationwide when you try to go to different other major cities to open up new markets. So that's one really significant advantage. Also, everything is 10-15 minutes apart. It's really convenient. You don't have to drive across town to do a meeting or whatever. I think that's really significant just from like a stress level as an entrepreneur. Yeah, I love New Orleans. So, but that proximity thing, it's really, you can really determine how much a city might adopt an innovation and what it might take in another city in a very short period of time. And I think that's an advantage.
Yeah, no, I love that. I heard someone was saying, like, California, it's all about who you know, and you gotta get past the gatekeepers. In New York, it's all about the secret handshakes. And I just think, ecosystems take on the personalities of the cities. And I think New Orleans, because we're such a communal city, like we're always together in the city. And so it just makes sense that the information and access flows as well. So I appreciate that. What's the problem you think you understand differently being here?
I would say for me, because I do fit in the tourism, industry as well with what I do, I would say I did not understand the layers of it. I didn't understand, I think now as have been building for the past 3 years, understanding more and more about like cities, infrastructure, and how, say, like larger industries like tourism affect, good or bad, a city. So I think with what I do, definitely saw the gap in like maybe more traditional media, and then some of our tourism boards not highlighting the deeper layers of what makes up New Orleans. And so I feel like I'm called to like do something about that, and so that's what we are doing. But I think it's the layers of tourism. I think people just say tourism and kind of don't understand, like, okay, where is money coming from? Why is New Orleans such a heavy tourism place? And I'm learning more and more. But I would say like that is something I've had to understand differently now by like doing the NOLA Collective.
I'll say that as we know, we have talent here. That's not something that we don't know. We know that we have talent here. What we lack per se is the infrastructure part, because we have all these different talents and we have all these different positions and businesses. It's just a sustainability piece that we need to master. And once we do that, it's straight up from there. But that is something that I think if you know that as a business owner or entrepreneur, that's something you can build on within any business that you're running or that you are expanding as well, when it comes to workforce development, economic development, all of those things as well. So building infrastructure so we can get more funding and recognize grant opportunities, all of that as well. So I think that that would be something, if you know that, you know how to pivot and structure your business so you could gain access to those things.
Also doubling down on that, the infrastructure part is really important. When you think about ecosystems like Silicon Valley and in New York, they already have a lot of this infrastructure, right? We were at a panel yesterday, and the guy was talking about how the lettuce, when the lettuce isn't growing, you don't look at the lettuce and critique the lettuce, you look at the soil and the environment. And so when we don't see a significant number of unicorn startups out of the city of New Orleans, it's not that there's something wrong necessarily with the entrepreneurs per se, it's that the environment doesn't necessarily give rise to that in its current state. And so the advantage, or the opportunity in that founders is that you do have to not only learn how to build a business, but also build the infrastructure that you need for your business to thrive at the same time. And yeah, I mean, I've been pretty in the weeds over the past 5 months with that, and I feel like that's been a value add for me just as an entrepreneur, and something that I can take really to every market that we ultimately open up. I always say that if we can figure out how to make health part of culture in this city, we can do it anywhere. And so that's just going to be a unique insight that I have in this space, particularly in health.
No, let's stay there actually. I have a specific question for you. Because your work sits at the intersection of public health, technology, and culture. And just in my, I kind of introduced, Charles introduced me, but I want to BC, improving health outcomes is one of the verticals that we look deeply into. And there's a density in health innovation throughout the South, but we also know that a lot of southern states rank last in health or health outcomes. And I'm just curious in terms of going to the infrastructure systemically, not even just entrepreneurial, across this systems as a whole, how do we reconcile the two in terms of, I want to build, or account for health innovation in the South, but also understanding through proximity what our communities are facing from health challenges in the South. I'm just curious in terms of how you reconcile those two.
Yeah, I think when we say there's a lot of innovation in the South, it's not actually in health, it's in medicine. And those are two different things, right? Like medicine, like going to the doctors only accounts for about 10% of your health outcomes. Right? The majority of your health is determined by how you engage with the world. And so the majority of the investments that are made in the innovation, because again, I'm not that involved in medical innovation with our company. And so I don't see that much innovation in health, actually, in the city, or in the state. And if there was, I think we'd see fewer disparities currently existing. And so most of my work does sit at the innovation area of health, and we have to ultimately make it to where health isn't an extra thing that people have to do to achieve health outcomes. We just have to integrate it into folks' lives. And so I think that with the work that we're doing, we're actually bringing culture first, and we're putting health at the foundation of it, as opposed to trying to create unique programming and new innovations on the medical side, because that's only going to improve and address about 10% of health outcomes.
No, I think that's an important distinction. So I appreciate that. And Lo, I want to just kick it to you for a second, as it relates to distinguishing who's who in certain industries. Because I come from the beauty industry. I built, that's the foundation of my career with Carol's daughter. And it's certainly accelerated like 10x even, within the 10 years that I left the company. So a lot of times when people hear beauty entrepreneur, they're usually thinking of a product some type of personal branding or what have you, an influencer or what have you, they do not think of Black women in manufacturing and distribution, because that's usually for middle, some obscure place, you know, like huge warehouses. So I'm just curious in terms of what gave you the audacity to break into the industry. And again, I love what you said earlier about why it's important that you do it here. And I know you just opened your space, which I can't wait, excuse me, to see sooner than later. But what is the role of space, like physical space? Particularly, what does that mean for an ecosystem like New Orleans?
Absolutely. So first I'll say definitely when people hear beauty, they're like, oh, you make lipstick, you know, in your kitchen. And I'm like, I started there, but that's not the whole story. And of course, when they hear manufacturing here, we think of oil and gas and plant. And what I tell people, you know, manufacturing is the same, but the product is just different. So what hard labor you see in oil and gas, that's the hard labor that you see in cosmetics and personal care products. But when I started this, I ran from it. I did not want to go into manufacturing. I said, nope, I'm not doing that. I knew I wanted to be in cosmetics and, you know, make the products. So that was the first question I was asked when I went to Dillon University. They said, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be the person that makes makeup. Whatever you call that person, it wasn't pronounced as it is now, since, you know, there's a lot of trending, influencer, you know, all of that now. But in the manufacturing space, I was in the industry. I worked for L'Oreal and Mary Kay, and I was more so in their labs, doing testing, stability testing, hair color testing, formulation and development. And I always noticed that we didn't talk about just inclusivity much. Everything was based on a scale, which of course is Fitzpatrick, and that's what we went off of. And they said, go off this, and that's what they did. I was always rebellious and was like, well, why do we have to do this? You know, and can we innovate this to try to reinvent the wheel? And of course, in industry, you know, when you're working for a corporate company, you have to do the corporate things. So that was a gap that I saw. Once I started formulating 4 different brands and making new innovative things, I got the question of, they needed manufacturing. It was so many gaps of questions that needed to be taken care of. It was all the way down to packaging. How do we get this? How do we get that? And I'm like, well, I know how to get it. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell nobody else I told you, because I don't want to do manufacturing. But of course, that didn't happen like that. So I decided to go ahead and leap into manufacturing. When we started, we were in 750 square feet, and then we grew to 2,000. And I said, okay, I need more space. And we grew to.
But tell people why you needed more space. Because you were growing,
yeah,
you were getting more customers.
We were getting more customers. Those customers were growing because we knew what needed to be addressed. You know, so different brands would come to us. It could be a bigger brand, even startup brands, and we just looked at what they had and we excelled their whole package, basically. And we got them into different retail stores like Walmart, Albertsons, Ulta, Sephora. And, you know, once you go into retail, your distribution has to be higher. And we needed more space so we could keep our client. So it was like next day I need more space. So that was something that I wanted to keep here, of course, because I knew if I kept growing to give more space, that's more jobs. And that's more jobs for students as well, because we had a lot of interns that were in our facilities because we were training our workforce basically. So just really diving into manufacturing. Once we started getting those bigger facilities, our first big facility was like 37,000 square feet, but it was in Opelousas. And I was like, well, that doesn't work because that's 3 hours away. So that's not helping us. And then finally, just this past March, we acquired 27,000 square feet, which is close to the airport in Kenner, which is still, you know, right across the line, but we still consider that New Orleans, in my opinion. But that's something that we are, you know, we're excited about, and we're pushing that narrative, because if we can create more space, if we can create more opportunity, then the industry keeps growing that we're in. And that's a good, bad problem, right? Because if I can get more clients and I have clients on wait lists, then I can, you know, say, hey, I have wait lists of clients, can I get more space? And that's when the port becomes important. People don't think about those two connections. You have the airport, you have the port. That's grant opportunity. That is funding opportunity because of incentives for the city, whether it's across the line or not. So that was part of the audacity for me to keep on pushing this, because we have space for it. We have so much space for it. The beauty industry comes here all the time. Beauty founders, huge brands, they come for Essence. We let them leave back out. And I just think that's what it is with all industry.
No, I appreciate that. And you have an incredible story, so I appreciate where you are, particularly on your journey, Bianca, I want to kick it to you, because just going back to the idea of space, which I'm also thinking about is like just a tangible, and visuals matter. And you, obviously, you know, your space with NOLA Collective is all about visuals. So if you had to just describe when someone is, I think Kwame said it earlier, there's tons of platforms out there, there's tons of even local platforms that all feel like they represent New Orleans in some way, shape, or form. When someone is engaging with the NOLA Collective, what do you want them to take away? What version of New Orleans do you want them to take away?
I would say, and this is where I came into just the purpose of like why I even want to start it, I just want people to know that there's a variety of things to do, and you can find your people, whatever that means. Like, that's the simplest way I could put it. Whether you are, we highlight everything from art events, wellness, live music, nightlife. People have to understand New Orleans is a place of variety, and it's not just Bourbon Street or Frenchman Street, and we love, you know, supporting artists that do perform there, but like, I want people to come look at the page and see themselves being a part of the city. That is the simplest way I could put it, because you can come here and you may be like, I don't like nightlife, and it's like, I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, we have art events, we have other things, and we have so many amazing people putting things together just off of their, like, New Orleans is a creative city. Everybody here is just like either music, building community, like even if you're in corporate, you may wanna host a networking event, and my platform is a area and a space for people to come and bring those ideas to life. I've helped so many different communities build. I've helped so many different, like, maybe event organizers get started just because I believed in what they were trying to do, which is simply build community.
I'm gonna ask you another question. Anybody can answer it, but it's something I've just been thinking about it a lot as we talk about how we represent New Orleans, and what we're trained to think about New Orleans, as you guys have kind of touched upon. And you know, I follow the NOLA Collective, and you don't really say black. When you go to the page, I know what I know what I'm getting. But I think that's it, because this is something I've been just thinking about a lot, and again, anybody could chime in, but I'll start with Bianca. Even with this panel, when Kelmac sent me the drafts, and it was just the drafts, it had something like black entrepreneur, something like that, and I'm like, why you gotta say black? Like, I feel like it's New Orleans, black is the default. But I don't know if that's, you know, like, I don't know if that's my impulses, or, you know, if that's something we should be training ourselves, but I do tend to get very protective around, like, other rising black people in this city, like, where, as I said, like, I do feel like, no, when you think of New Orleans, you should think black first, like, we should be the default. And so I'm just curious, particularly, like, you know, you don't say the Black NOLA Collective, you just say NOLA Collective. So I'm just curious how you guys position your work as it relates. I mean, obviously we're all black founders, black entrepreneurs, but how do you fall on that spectrum in terms of when and where, how you position yourself in a larger industry capacity?
Yeah, I actually love answering this question because I agree, I don't have to say black because New Orleans is black. So I feel like I post safe black spaces, but that doesn't mean that like that's excluding others. It's just I'm making sure that people understand that they are safe black spaces for them to go. So I agree, I don't feel like I have to say black because when people ask that question, I'm like, well, do you think that like some of our festivals like that I post are black only? They're not. And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, are art events only, for certain people? They're like, no. And so I really don't have to say black because it's just like, I'm posting a variety of experiences for us in New Orleans. So I feel like we should be able to go everywhere in the city. And I think that's the narrative I'm also helping to shape of like, okay, we aren't pigeonholed to certain spaces. We could be wherever in the city and see ourselves there. And I think that's where I feel like what sets me apart from a lot of other just organizations, pages, whatever you want to say, because like I don't try to limit myself or limit how my audience can see themselves.
Yeah, well, I think it's slightly different with me. So we're building a black electronic health record. So we do kind of, no one's excluded. You're just gonna at least have to be in support of that mission to feel comfortable around. I think it depends. I think obviously New Orleans is default black. When people come in from out of town, actually Anwar was just telling me, he's like, I haven't seen no white people. I was like, honestly, I really don't see white people on a weekly basis in my work and in the city, and that's a different experience that I don't think that we recognize as black people in this city, like the positive effect that might have on us. Again, that's nothing against any white people. It's just to be able to see yourself, see people around you that look like you, that are growing and thriving in different ways. It's a blessing that we don't always pay attention to.
Right, I appreciate that. Let me ask you another messy question.
Okay.
So I would be remiss, honestly, if I didn't ask this. So as I'm sure everyone knows, there was a Guardian article that came out in the Guardian, essentially declaring that New Orleans, because of the rise in sea levels, that New Orleans was beyond, that was the headline, beyond the point of no return. It read almost like an obituary, as Sierra, she gave just a shout out to Sierra, said it read really like, and they were like, we need to start working on an evacuation plan. And it was really interesting, the different groups. I was kind of eavesdropping on to see what the reactions were. And I would have to say, our ethos, like our age group and even younger, by far were the most suspicious, but also like, bunk. Like, in a sense of just like why? Because it came out the week, just to gotta give everyone context, it came out the week after SCOTUS. So it was definitely like this air of throw the city away, like we're done, you know what I'm saying? And so at least that's the way I said it. And so hold on, let me just so I am just curious, and when I say bunk, everybody's like, I'm not going anywhere. Like it was just a lot of like, this is my home, we've been here generationally, we will figure this out, so forth and so on. And again, being an entrepreneur, I mean, you're pretty much in a marriage with your business. Like you are in this, like this is a long-term investment. And so I'm just curious in terms of, as a reaction to the article or the sentiment of the article, what keeps you going here, but also just, I think it's important that the audience understands how this impacts how you fundraise, how you go about getting new customers, how it impacts your business as a whole.
Might have a slightly hot take on this. I would say follow the money. I don't know where the money's going to go, but I would just say follow the money here. The world is changing significantly right now, right? Primarily driven by AI. And if you notice, there's a lot of investment going into live entertainment, sports, so on and so forth. But these are the things, the industries that are going to survive and thrive as AI automates much of our world. all we do here is live entertainment, experiences in real life. Like, this is one of the only cities in the country that is almost entirely based on that. So I saw the article, I saw the message, and I'm actually very, very passionate about like eco-friendly environmentalism, stuff like that. I eat a whole food plant-based diet for that reason. So I'm not saying it's not a problem at all, but I think New Orleans is going to be one of the biggest opportunities in the AI era because of just the nature of the city and what we do here. And so anyway, I would just move with some caution in that regard before deciding that like it's the end, because I think there's a way to figure it out, because there always is. And New Orleans will be a thriving city in the AI era, and I'm certain of that.
I'll add on this. Because of course, when new things come about, we want to get a hold of them and really become experts on these things, so that way we can captivate the spaces that we need to, so we can continue to keep building and innovating. And I think AI is the first thing that we've had in a while that hasn't necessarily been tampered with, where there's a history on it to say, hey, you can't use this, or you can't learn this, or this is something that majority of these people know that this group of people don't know. AI is the first thing that we've had in a long time where we all have to learn it, and we all have to become experts at it, because it's paving the way for a lot of things that we are progressing into as of right now. And of course, the youth, I always go back to the youth, because this is something that they actually have an interest in, and we don't have to push them to do it. You know, they're teaching us. But what I will say is we have to get a grip on it to really become experts on it, so that way in any industry, we can navigate the space that we talked about earlier, that blank canvas of a space, the way we need to navigate it. So that way there's no dictations or anything that can be put in place to say, now this is what you can't learn about it, to inhibit us from becoming successful within those spaces that we're about to evolve into. So I think that's something that I always have on my mind every day when I'm, of course, learning AI, because I feel like it's how our parents felt when we started dealing with computers and internet and broadband and all of the things. I think it's one of those things that we can't say, oh, I don't know how to work the computer, you go ahead and do it. No, we all need to know how to do it so we can progress how we need to.
I would say I have a lot of opinions on this one. I agree with follow the money. I feel like there are a lot of investments that will happen in New Orleans because of the experience economy that is going to boom very soon. And I've been tracking that, especially as I talked about like understanding. I implore everybody just like look more into, as I said, like the tourism industry, especially if you live here. Where is the money going? How is the money being allocated? That's a whole nother conversation. But I do feel like the article is a distraction, and I feel like it is, to talk about narratives, I think it's a means to make the people of New Orleans continue to feel like they're, that we needed to value New Orleans, when in reality, we need to double down on building things, building systems, building brands, building whatever here that really showcase and own our culture. Like we talk all the time about the exportation of our culture. I think that was, the article was just another way of a distraction to try to get us to do that and not really pay attention to the people who are really trying to take from the city. And how it affects my business and what I'm doing. I actually feel, I guess, empowered and invigorated from seeing that article. And actually, I'm building something with two other entrepreneurs in New Orleans to help more people see the value, especially in the artist community. So I actually see it as something empowerment, so empowerment tool for me to just go harder with what I'm doing and having to shape the narratives of the city. So I hope people do not take that in a way of they need to move out the city. I think more people should actually think about moving to New Orleans if they're not already here.
So let's stay there, right? And it's a two-part question. So my first question is what would you like to see the people in this room or at this conference, like what do you think they need to be doing in response to everything we talked about as with New Orleans and the innovation ecosystem, but just New Orleans as a whole?
I would say New Orleans as a whole. One, I'm very happy this conference is here in New Orleans, investing in New Orleans, and just seeing from the DJ, the photographers, videographers, so many people that are local to New Orleans, and I implore Camelback Ventures for doing that. I love that. I know it was founded here and continue to come here. I would say for founders that are in this room, especially as you are even considering, if you are an investor, let's start with the investor side, definitely look at the talent that is here in New Orleans, because there's so many different founders from all different industries that you can invest in. With founders on the founding side, if you ever, can aid or help a colleague or a founder to help them with resources that maybe they may not know about, or that's something that they could bring to New Orleans, I would say help them out. Resources, money, time are all ways that people can help give back to the city.
I'll also add in to resources as well, like you spoke on, especially when it comes to just investments in general. I think with New Orleans entrepreneurs or business owners, like we're creatives. So in that space, we are, of course, in multiple different facets. And in order to deem us fundable, you have to have an open mind as far as what it is everyone does and how those things can grow, to really listen and understand their creativeness behind what they're doing, to understand the success level of it and how it can be impactful and how we can continue to keep growing these things. Because I may be in manufacturing, we have the health sector, as well as the NOLA Collective that basically connects us all with what we're doing. But if we don't understand what that looks like as an investor, eventually we want to become the new investors, right? As we continue to keep scaling, we want scalability to be there so we can continue rinse and repeating that. And if we don't have those open-minded individuals that are betting on what we're doing just as well as we're betting on those things, it's hard to build the infrastructure that we're talking about in order to plummet us into scalability.
I think you make a good point with that. One thing that I always tell people in our work with Bear Health, again, we're focused on maximizing health in the Black community. If I wanted to go out and build my business, the digital health platform business, as quickly as possible, I would probably go to Los Angeles and promote this to like the almond women, the white women that are engaged with all of this. My business would grow quickly and I get a lot of success. And then if I were then to try and bring that to New Orleans and kind of deploy it in the same way that I deployed it in the way that it worked in LA, it wouldn't work, right? Like people wouldn't engage with the platform. I wouldn't be able to change behavior because I designed it based on what they needed over here, what they would engage with here. And one of the advantages when you develop solutions kind of from the bottom up with folks that are dealing with the greatest barriers, you actually learn so much more. You learn things that can actually scale up and support strategy across all demographics and socioeconomic statuses. And so I think something similar is happening from the investor side when they come to this city. See, they may be familiar with the Silicon Valley, the New York, so on and so forth, and they come here and they look for those same things in founders here. But those things don't exist in the founders here because the infrastructure and the soil that is in the Bay Area doesn't exist here. And so you have to find a different approach. You can't just say, oh, well, they're just not a qualified and ready founder. Right? They don't have the same experience. So you have to build the soil while you also build the founder up. And so we have to figure out strategies. I was invited to a dinner a couple of weeks ago with the mayor and or deputy mayor, Tulane Innovation Institute, JP Morgan Chase, and they were just asking us like, what are the real issues specifically around fundraising in the city? And I think it's one, the investors here don't really take risks like the West Coast, East Coast, so on and so forth. It's a different different attitude or aptitude for risk here for one. And if we can figure out a way to de-risk the investment for several investors at the same time, maybe we find out, okay, every 20 founders that receive $1 million investment, one of them becomes a unicorn. Like figure out what that data point is in Silicon Valley, and then everybody kind of pulls in and invests in some founders. And they say, well, what about mentorship and stuff like that? I'm like, yes, that and the money. But you got to put money in entrepreneurs' hands. Every successful entrepreneur, like if you ever watch any of those movies, like the movie about Uber, the movie about Spotify, there was one person bankrolling this guy until they figured it out. That energy, that trust, that's what moves the needle, and that's what will actually create some unicorn founders in this city. And because the energy and the desire is there, it's just that the infrastructure is not. And we just got to figure out the right approach. Is it, you commit $1 million in, but it only comes out at $20,000, $30,000 a month, and it only gets unlocked as soon as the founder hits those specific milestones. We just have to figure out how to get money in founders' pockets so we can move like these boys do it on the West Coast.
As we close, imagine New Orleans in 10 years. What is something you think we got right? Or you hope we get right?
I hope we prioritize our health. Because if we keep the culture the way it is right now, we will continue to die earlier from type 2 diabetes, hypertension, heart disease. We're developing these conditions earlier in life, in our 20s and 30s now, and our bodies can only live with these conditions for so long, and ultimately we're living shorter lives, right? My mom's friend lost her husband to a stroke at 46. Right? They had a 13-year-old son. That's preventable. Strokes are preventable. Heart disease is preventable. So I hope that in 10 years, I hope that we have health as a part of the infrastructure and integrated into every aspect of what we do. That doesn't mean that we don't celebrate, have a good time, do all of that. But that's what I hope, because that's going to give us the best chance at whatever future we want outside of that.
I'll say, in the context of improvement for long term, I'll say investment in research. Because if we don't have any data on anything, then we don't have any improvement on most things. So whatever that needs to look like, whether it's, in healthcare or in these different industries, I think there's a lot of research that needs to be done, and fundable research, to continue to keep improving what it is we are investing in as well, to gain those data points to say, this is the data we have on this because we know this works. Specifically, of course, for manufacturing and personal care products, because that's not something that's going out of style anytime soon. We need things that are sustainable for everyone inclusively, for health reasons, when it comes to the things that we're taking in, because the elements aren't going to change. They're just going to keep increasing. So those are things that we need to focus in on.
In 10 years, I hope, as we talk about, especially with the article, I hope we have ownership of our narrative. And that's very layered, because I feel like that would mean, more empowerment, more resources poured into entrepreneurs and businesses. I feel like that means a lot of different things. But if I had a magic wand, it would be ownership of our narrative.
You had a bonus? You want to take us out?
Yeah, I had a bonus with AI. So at that dinner, after we finished talking about funding, the entire conversation became about AI. And what I noticed is that the folks who actually organized the dinner, the Deputy Mayor of Economic Development, JP Morgan Chase, and Tulane Innovation Institute, they were nowhere nearly as aware of what's happening with AI as the founders were. Right? Each of us, there was a gentleman who has AI doing basically all of his sales calls, and the sales calls are better than his normal employees on making sales calls and executing those. I've been building one new product using AI every week for the past 10 weeks, just so that I can get really good at using AI to create apps and websites. And another guy had rebuilt his entire product that he'd been building for 5 years and spent a couple $1 million on in 2 weeks using AI, and it's better. And they didn't know that.
Wow.
That's not okay. if we're gonna keep up in this world, I mean, I'm not saying that like our experience economy isn't going to be a strong moat for us. It definitely will, but we need to be advancing this, and the fact that those folks in the top weren't aware as the founders of that, I think speaks to the value of founders, or people who are in the mud of just the experience, and then part of why we should be invested in different ways. So yeah, I just think that all kids need to be coding with AI. I think that's what the biggest companies in the world are doing right now. All of their employees, whether they're the accounting person, the banker, whatever it doesn't matter. They're all spending time coding with AI because it's the quickest way to create value right now, quickest, cheapest, most effective way.
I appreciate that. Unfortunately, we do have to wrap. This was an amazing panel. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Calumet, for even making space for this very, very specific and local conversation. So thank you very much. Can I get a blue shot right here? Yeah, slide over just a little bit. I know. Can I get y'all to close your eyes, and when I count to 3, open them up with a smile? All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Open your eyes with a smile. Very good. Got it. Thank you.
All right. For those vacations, for folks.
It was so good. I took some pictures. Do you want me to send them to you? I wasn't sure if you had anyone to
Yeah, all good.
Look at you.
Yeah, that was a live streaming. Yeah, content is king.